Shalom and welcome again to Secrets of Meaning, the podcast and TV arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. I'm your host, Rabbi Richard Address. Thank you very, very much for joining us today. We are very, very grateful for your time and interest in these podcasts, which are designed to shed some light on some of the issues that we are dealing with in our revolution in longevity. And occasionally, every once in a while, we take a little bit of a, let's say, challenging detour into specific aging issues to really explore some other issues that are impacting us and our families and our communities. And we are going to do so in such a way today for something very exciting, very interesting, and we are very grateful for all these people who are joining us today. So let me welcome Kim Passy Yoseph, the Director of Operations for an organization called Interact.org, and we're going to be talking a lot about that. Emili Ghraiyib, the project manager for Interact, and also a tour guide for MEDJI Tours, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. And Catherine Fischer, supporter of Interact and an activist in this organization, which is a very, very unique organization. And I would venture to say, if I could be very, very honest, something that is very topical, timely, probably to some people who may be listening, somewhat controversial, but yet extremely necessary and important. So welcome to all of you to Secrets of Meaning. Let me turn to you, Kim, as the Director of Operations right away. What is Interact?
Interact is a nonprofit arm of MEDJI Tours. MEDJI Tours, I'll just say a word about MEDJI and then go to Interact. But Aziz Abu Sarah, who is Palestinian and East Jerusalemite, he and Scott Cooper, his partner, an American Jewish conflict resolution expert, they've met about 15 years ago, and they decided that they're going to try and change the world through travel. So they started a tour company that runs now globally, but back then we would do tours that are running with an Israeli tour guide and a Palestinian tour guide on the bus together, giving the travelers first the knowledge that they need about the whole region and not only a one-sided kind of tour, but also showing them the dialogue between Israelis and Palestinians is indeed possible in a respectful way, in a friendship type of style. And then when you have a for-profit, there are a lot of things that you can't do, or communities that it's more difficult to reach. So they decided to also create this nonprofit called Interact, which has been running, sorry, I don't know where the clicking is coming from, but there is like a clicking sound, and it's you. I wasn't sure. Okay, I'll go back to Interact. Yeah. So as I said, there are a lot of things actually that you can't do as a for-profit business that you actually can reach with a nonprofit. So we decided to establish the nonprofit and begin working in the region and out of it with a few different projects that we're running. The most recent project that we're focusing on right now is the Dual Narrative Education Center, which is aimed mainly for the local community, but also for anyone that's interested to learn more about the conflict. The idea is we're wanting to create more compassion and empathy between the sides. And the way to create that is to just expose the communities to each other. I mean, if you're an Israeli, you won't see Palestinians unless you're a soldier in a checkpoint. And if you're a Palestinian, the only Israelis you know are the soldiers in the checkpoints. It's very hard to commit to anyone that is your enemy. So if we're able to show the culture, the food, the people, the personal stories, then we're able to create a change bottom up. And that's our main goal right now.
So, Emili, talk to me now about, because you're a tour guide, and Catherine was on one of these tours, because that's how we got really to do this, because we had a conversation at a deli recently, and Are you still leading? You can't possibly be leading to, but for clarification, we're recording this, it's the middle of July. So the conflict is still ongoing. And this will post in about 2 weeks. My bet is the conflict will still be ongoing in 2 weeks. The tour, Emili, what did you do on these tours? How did you manage this? And are you still doing these now? You can't possibly be doing these now, can you?
Unfortunately, right now, tourism is very low as the war is still ongoing and people are afraid to come here, which is understandable. I was always curious to know what people from the other side think. And I had a lot of questions. And this is what brought me to participate in some seminars that bring Israelis and Palestinians together to ask all these questions. And it was the first time that I actually met Israelis as civilians, just as Kim explained. And after I studied tour guiding, it's because I always wanted to be an ambassador of Palestine. I wanted people to know more about Palestine, culture, about the beauty of it. That's why I studied tour guiding. And I decided to be specialized in geopolitical tours through guiding with MEDJI, because I find it very interesting that I'm able to say what I think, represent the Palestinian voice, and have this voice be challenged by having an Israeli guide with me answering on my questions and vice versa. I find it very educative and very interesting and also eye-opening. And you need to have a lot of patience and the ability to hear others, even if you don't agree with them.
Right. So, Catherine, you came to us as a result of going on one of these tours, correct? And that got you to be involved with the organization. Talk to me about that experience. What was it like? This was not your Israel 101 tour, what was that like? What touched your soul more than anything else?
So this was, I guess, my 5th trip to Israel. I'd never been to Palestine, and I was not in Israel very much with the trip that we were just on. So my impetus was to see the full view of that land, which I had never seen. I was never exposed to Palestine before or any Palestinians in the past, and I was very restless to see that and experience it and hear those stories. It was transformative. I mean, Emili was our Palestinian guide. We also had an Israeli guide. There's nothing that teaches you more powerfully than to hear somebody's story and perspective and have it next to the narrative that you grew up with, that's what I knew. And I learned so much, but also, what it touched my heart. And there was, I was actually speaking to one of our co-travelers yesterday, and we were talking about this moment where we were at a checkpoint in the West Bank. And we had to pull over, and I can't remember if one of the soldiers looked in the window or actually came on the bus, but I have this vivid memory of seeing Emili's face and how scared she was. And just that dynamic just broke my heart. And I think that was one of the most powerful moments on the trip. There were a lot of very challenging moments. We were in Hebron, we were in all the hot spots, but just seeing Emili, who we all had a relationship with, the expression on her face, and then she went to the back of the bus because she realized if she was seen by the soldier, that was going to complicate things. And, I just, I guess I was naive. I didn't know what existed before I went on that trip.
This is 2024. What year was this trip?
2022.
2020. So 2 years ago. Different world.
Right. Yeah. It was during the pandemic, actually.
Yeah. Fell into the pandemic. Emili, a typical one of these tours that Catherine went on, 7 days, 20 days, 10 days. Walk me real fast what that itinerary, so somebody who's listening to this or watching this can kind of sort of like a quick sense of where you went and what you did.
So the way MEDJI Tours usually organize the tours and design them is in response to what the client wants. So in the case of Catherine's group, they wanted to see both Israeli and Palestinian places. I could speak of the West Bank area and where we went, and Kim can speak of the places they've been in Israel more, as she knows them more well. And in the West Bank, they visited Bethlehem and also went to Hebron. And Hebron is considered to be one of the places that is most heated, because it's in there that a lot of violence, I could say, happening. So they have been exposed to what's happening directly, and they have seen things that most visitors who come to Israel might just not choose to come. It's easier to go to the beach and enjoy it, which is great, than actually to choose to go to a conflicted place.
So I would hope that when peace comes, God willing, and more importantly, probably the politicians willing, you will resume these tours, which I would imagine would be very, very, even more fascinating.
Can I just say that we're actually running mission trips? So I don't know if you've heard that there are many solidarity missions that have been forming from everywhere, basically, but a lot from the U.S., supporting the Jewish community that has been affected by October 7th. And when we saw that starting to come through, we decided that we need to offer our supporters a counter tour, something that they would feel comfortable going on, because we're showing solidarity to both sides.
And what would that solidarity tour look like?
Good question. It's basically trying to show the travelers every narrative that you can possibly think of. Even so, they start with meeting Israelis that were affected by October 7th. One of my childhood friends was captured and held hostage in Gaza for 54 days. So the group met with her family members, and they heard the story of how did they manage to get her back, and they had a huge impact. We met Mao Zinon. We met with even foreign workers. How were they affected? The Thai people, Chinese, from everywhere. A lot of them went back to their countries, and this is a story or a voice that not many groups will hear. We went to the West Bank. They heard Christian voices. They heard, even had a Zoom with a Gazan citizen or resident that managed to leave Gaza. They met with East Jerusalemites, with a Arab municipality member in Tel Aviv. So it was like really a huge range of narratives and stories. I wouldn't call it a tour, more like meeting, a convention, I don't know. But they would go around and meet different speakers and then have time to facilitate and kind of take it in. We put a lot of emphasis on listening, because you're hearing voices that are very difficult for you sometimes, stories that are difficult, but it's very important to show respect to the speakers and also to your fellow travelers that think differently from you. And this trip helped people connect back to their communities and even connect to the other voice, which was amazing.
There may be, in the course of people listening or watching this, a few people who say, this is something that I think I would really like to investigate. How can someone who's interested, somewhere around the States, North America, the world, where do I go to find out more information about what you're talking about, Kim? How much it costs? What are the logistics? Is there a website, phone number, et cetera, et cetera? What is it?
Yep. You go to MEDJI Tours. You look
spell
for
it.
MEDJI.com, or MEDJITours.com. And there is the mission. Can we share a link later on the,
You will take care of that.
Okay, so we'll share a link. We're running about one mission every few months, and we're also running private missions. So Catherine maybe can talk a bit about the private mission that she's planning with us, but we're also doing that as well. And even groups that are coming to us and saying, we want to visit the Kibbutzim, or we want to visit the Nova Festival area, then we usually say we only do that with residents or with people that are inviting us to come. And we encourage you to also meet people from the other side and to hear different stories, because you can't have the full picture without it.
So Catherine, Kim just mentioned that you're planning one of these adventures, tours, experiences, whatever you want to call it. Are you at liberty to talk a little bit about what that is, what you're hoping to do, and when?
Yep. I mean, I'm actually planning to go 2 times. I'm going to go in September and in November. November is the one that I'm leading with somebody else who was on the tour with us in 2022. And since our trip in 2022, I worked with Emili and Kim to organize dual narrative series through Interact. There were 5 sessions, and we brought in about 50 plus people to listen to 2 narratives on different topics having to do post October 7th. And so we've created a lot of interest, and a lot of people now feel very connected to the people that they heard from. So our next step is to do this trip in November. And so we're working with Kim and Emili on the itinerary still a little bit, but we're going to be staying in Tel Aviv and traveling to hear different narratives, different stories, to some of the sites in Israel post October 7th. I think we're going to Jerusalem to hear some of the peace activist groups, A Land for All and Combatants for Peace, who was also one of the co-organizers of the trip I did in 2022.
So if you're able to, because listen, to be very practical about this, you're planning this for November. How many days, and what's the cost?
So it's going to be, I think, 5 days. It's going to be, we'll start Monday and it'll end on Friday. And the cost, it depends on how many people we have. Kim, do you know roughly how much it will be? I mean, we're thinking 10 people, so $3,000 a person. Is that?
All right, so $3,000 plus airfare and
right.
Okay,
$3,000. Our mission usually costs $3,600 per person in a double room. So Catherine's trip is a bit shorter, costs a bit less.
Okay. I just want to make sure that, because there may be somebody who is thinking about this, and if we can tell us that this is about how long it's going to be, and this is the ballpark of what it's going to cost, at least somebody can begin to think about it, saying, well, let me see how I can do this. And it's different if I fly from Philadelphia as opposed to flying from Los Angeles, and all the logistics about that. Let me go back to the interact.org, which is the website, and the Dual Narrative Education Center. Because Catherine mentioned this, Kim mentioned this, Emili mentioned this a little bit. This is, what is this center? What does it do? And again, the website, interact.com, how do I get involved with this if I want to? At least just let me, sort of like dip my toe in the water and say what this is about. What is this conflict? What is this dual narrative education center mean? What does it do? Kim, you want to start?
Sure. It's actually a dream of Aziz's it has been a dream of his for years. He was thinking of a museum, like a physical museum, but we understand that there are barriers and borders that won't offer the ability for everyone to visit this museum. And we're not aiming to only impact tourists, we're also aiming to impact the local community. So we thought that an online center would be easier now, at least for people to show up without having to show up physically and without anyone else knowing. Honestly, a lot of people are afraid right now to listen to the other side. They're scared to even have their friends know that they're listening to the other side or that they even care. So we're giving a place for them to hear their own voice, but also to hear another voice. So our goal is to have even, well, maybe not the most radical voices, but semi-radical, so that everyone can find their voice in this center. It's going to have little snippets, videos of education-themed videos. So like, what is 1948 for Israelis versus Palestinians? What is a checkpoint for Israelis versus Palestinians? And then we're going to have personal stories given by different segments of the communities. We started with women that are telling their story and what life as a Palestinian or an Israeli looks like. And we also have a library. So we're bringing in as much data and information, videos, books, academic publications, anything that you can think of in this one space. And our idea is to kind of rein in all of these peacemaking organizations. Anyone that wants to cooperate with us, we're keen to do that. And we want them to be included in this education center so we can amplify their voice.
So, Emili, how are you getting this message out? How are you getting people around the world to know about this educational center and what it's doing?
So we've to have the educational center be published, we're using different tools, I could call them. We have our social media that we will start publishing about it. We have new accounts, Interact, International, Dual Narrative Education Center. You can find us. We have also our founders and activists who have been very actively participating in speaking tours. They're meeting people and they are telling about it. We also have the sessions that we are making through our activists. We also have our newsletter that people can subscribe to it through our website. There is also a way through the website that people can be part of spreading the word through being a volunteer and donating some of their time, either by reposting our posts or organize their own webinar and have speakers and gather some friends and let them meet the speakers on the ground, or any other help. We have a lot of suggestions where people can be part of our mission.
And so if somebody wants to, tap into this, and it is Zoom, it's electronic. There's no, as Kim was saying, there's not a physical center. The website, where do I go for this, for this dual?
So
go ahead.
You go to our website, iinteract.org, and you go to support us. And in that page, you can fill a form of how do you want to support us. There are lots of options.
Okay, so this is something you said is very important, because when I first started to go on the website, I got transferred over to something else. You mentioned it's not interact.org, it's
iinteract.
iinteract.org.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So 2 I's in the beginning.
Okay, because just to make sure people understand that they don't go off to some, I don't know where I was transferred to. What is your hope? I mean, this is a magnificent idea. The war has put a hold on the tours. I understand that. The education center, from what you're telling us, is trying to develop these electronic outreach, in-reach programs to educate, raise awareness, hear stories. You guys feel frustrated at all? I mean, the goal is so wonderful, so necessary, but the reality seems so overwhelming. Do you ever, Kim, Emili, just in your heart of hearts, sometimes at the end of the day say, it's just too much. It's just too much. Or is that spark of hope and saying we just got to keep moving because eventually this is going to be okay? Where are you? Where are you right now, both of you?
I think it's every day. And it's not at the end of the day, it's the beginning of the day, and then we meet each other. And that's the spark of hope. I think for me, I'll share a short story that will help understand, how we're feeling, at least from my side. October 7th was devastating. And I learned that my friend is missing. On the 8th or 9th, we learned that she was held captive in Gaza. But it took about 18 days until we actually got the news from the IDF that she is indeed in Gaza. So that time for me was crazy. And very quickly, very shortly after the 7th, we understood, Aziz and I and the team, that we have to have a team meeting. And we got on that meeting, and one of the Israelis said to Emili, "Hey, Emili, how are you?" And I think everyone was shocked by that question. And the reason everyone was shocked is because they were surprised, but in my eyes, pleasantly surprised. Because that shows that we truly care. Truly, we care about each other, and nothing will change that. Not this war and not the next. And when Emili and I connected after that conversation, we started asking each other the very difficult questions coming out of this frustration of the war, of the hate, of everything we're seeing. And when we passed that point where we're being polite to each other and showing, I care because you're a colleague, into a place where I can ask you everything because you're my friend, that's when the hope started to show, because I said, okay, wow, my mind can change, her mind can change out of this conversation. So that's a path forward. And we have to talk to each other because that's a huge way forward.
Yeah, I share everything that Kim said, and I would add on that is that there was a time when I told Kim, look, we need to talk, When you say this word, I don't know your background. I don't know what's happening with you. Where are all these thoughts coming from? I want to know you more. And the fact that we have this relationship gives hope. The fact that whenever I feel frustrated and wanted to cry, I would call Kim to cry with her on the phone and she can hear me. And adding on that is that the way I ask myself is, if I want to answer my kids in 10, 20 years, what did I do as a person? How did I contribute to resolving the conflict in this area? What was I doing when there was a war here? I want to have an answer, and a good one. And therefore, this is what makes me wake up every day and gives me motivation. I want to be active. I want to do something good for the future of my kids.
Catherine, you walked this walk on the tours. You're planning another one. You obviously have a deep affinity for this work and the relationships that you formed with Kim and Emili. You're sitting in southern New Jersey, thousands of miles away from this conflict. What's your hope for this? What's your dream in your heart of hearts, in your neshama, in your soul?
I'll answer that in two parts. I was somebody who would always say, I love Israel. And I think I still say that. I still say I love Israel, but I also love humanity. And I care deeply about Palestinians, and I care deeply that they have everything that a human being deserves, their own land. So I do this work out of love for my Judaism, the Jewish people, and for all people. And I think, it often gets misunderstood that I'm I mean, I've had people really angry with me that I'm doing this work. And, I crossed that threshold of, kind of similar to what Emili said, is that I want to be on the right side of history for myself. And this has always been my work, whether it was, justice work in the States, this feels like justice work in Israel. And all my Jewish values point me to do this work. This is coming from Jewish values. And I love the people. I mean, Emili and Kim give me hope. The name of our trip was in 2022, A Reason for Hope. And I have to tell you, I struggled during that trip to feel hope. And I used to get up every morning to watch the sunrise, and that partly gave me hope because I thought each day offers new possibilities. But what I ended up leaving with, and it took months to process that trip, was that it was Emili and Kim and other Israelis and Palestinians that are in relationship doing this incredibly hard work, especially right now, and persevering in it. That is my hope. That is my community. And that's where I derive strength at this really difficult time.
Kim, Emili, Catherine, thank you very much for teaching us that in the end, it's about people and relationships, and the fact that we really are all the same, and we want the same things for ourselves and our families and our kids and our own legacy. And I thank you for your time. I thank you for your dedication. I thank you for your passion, for shalom, salam, for hope, for not giving up and not giving in, and maintaining that sense of, as Catherine said, humanity and dignity in the face of a lot of not so positive stuff. I wish you first of all, I wish you health and continued success. And if we at Jewish Sacred Aging can be of any help to you like this, and I hope, just you know how to get a hold of us, and Catherine knows exactly where I live, so it's okay. So it's okay. Thank you very, very much. Real fast, Kim as Director of Operations, the two websites, we'll link them. Interact is II, right?
Correct.
Tell me what it is.
iinteract.org. And for MEDJI, it's MEDJI Tours, MEJDI tours.com.
Catherine, Kim, Emili, thank you very, very much. Just stay healthy, stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To all of you, thank you very, very much for joining us on this very, very fascinating and obviously difficult conversation, but a conversation that has to be had in sanity and without threat. So thank you very, very much. If you'd like to make a comment or a suggestion for the show, just feel free to email me at Rabbi Address at JewishSacredAging.com. Visit our website, JewishSacredAging.com, if you'd like to support the work. There's a very, very conveniently located button on that website. Click it and just follow the prompts. Visit us on the Facebook page too, Jewish Sacred Aging on Facebook. We very, very much appreciate your time in joining us today. Secrets of Meaning, as a reminder, is produced at the studios of Lubetkin Media Companies in absolutely wonderful Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And a shout out to our genius electronic guru, Steve Lubetkin. I'm your host, Rabbi Richard Address, and again, I thank you for your time and joining us today. And until we see each other again on our next Seekers of Meaning, be kind to one another, stay safe, stay healthy. Shalom. Salam. Toda Rabah.